questions. Question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Nous sommes en train de faire témoignage de
We are currently witnessing massive incompetence by this Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has spent $20 billion more on the public service while causing the biggest public service strike in over 40 years. As a result of that, 700 people didn't have heating for 3 days. The minister has told Canadians not to apply for passports, to not even bother trying to obtain a passport here in Canada. How much will Canadians have to pay to fix the strike that the Prime Minister caused? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, public servants offer essential services to Canadians, and the government appreciates their work. We have committed to reaching agreements which are fair and reasonable for Canadians. That's what we're doing right now. We will continue to do so until we reach an agreement that is fair and reasonable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
to increase the cost of the bureaucracy by 50% or $20 billion a year. It would be another to have a strike. But to do both of those things at once takes a special, unique kind of incompetence that only this Prime Minister could pull off. But the consequences are that 700 soldiers have been without heat and warm water. Canadians are now told they're not even to apply for passports, let alone get one, meaning that they'll miss international weddings. Our veterans, our seniors, our small businesses, our taxpayers are all being ripped off. Now, how much are they going to have to pay to bring an end to the Prime Minister's cause strike?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, public servants from the PSAC provide important services to Canadians, and the government values their work. We are committed to reaching agreements that are fair for employees and also reasonable to Canadians. There is a competitive deal on the table, but the PSAC continues to insist on demands that are unaffordable and would severely impact our ability to deliver services to Canadians. Now, Canadians can expect both parties to bargain in good faith and find compromise. That is what we are focusing on, Mr. Speaker. Merci.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This Prime Minister is unaffordable. Maybe if we weren't spending $21 billion on consultants every year, he wouldn't have the biggest public service strike in modern memory. He expects us also to believe that he has no direct or indirect involvement with the Trudeau Foundation, even though its donors pay for his vacations. He chose two of its former directors to head up investigations into foreign interference. The Trudeau Foundation received Beijing-based donations, which his brother processed. Mr. Speaker, now we learn that the Trudeau Foundation is holding meetings in his office. Did he not know about that either?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
The meeting that took place was between public servants in a government building. It wasn't with the Prime Minister, but I can understand that the Leader of the Opposition, as usual, is looking to swing a wide stick and doesn't seem to care what he hits, Mr. Speaker. There is constant beret of attacks and mischaracterization of information. His interest, again and again, is to disrupt and be partisan rather than provide productive solutions to the issues that face this country right now.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So let's get this straight. The Trudeau Foundation's donors paid for the Prime Minister's vacation, but he didn't know about that. The Trudeau Foundation supplied the two independent investigators to look into the interference by Beijing. He didn't know about that either. The Trudeau Foundation received donations from Beijing, organized and orchestrated by his brother, but he didn't know about that. And now we know there were meetings in the Prime Minister's office with his top officials and the Trudeau Foundation. Once again, are they really expecting Canadians to be dumb enough not to believe that he didn't know about that either?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Sometimes I stay up at night and I wonder how the Leader of the Opposition got to the position of recommending to people to opt out of inflation by recommending cryptocurrency as a solution. And now I understand why, Mr. Speaker. Listening.
I just want to wait till everybody's ready and we can get on with question period. The Honourable Government House Leader, please proceed.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's because if you listen to that convoluted mess that the Leader of the Opposition tossed out there that was completely nonsensical, and I'll just take one for a point. Yes, the Prime Minister, as I've said on many occasions, took a vacation with his family over Christmas and stayed at a friend's house. By the way, that friend had been his family friend his entire life. He had been at that residence when he was 1 year old. The mischaracterizations continue.
The Leader of the Opposition.
So the Prime Minister really wants Canadians to believe that he received payments for his vacation from donors to the Trudeau Foundation, but that he didn't know. He wants people to believe that the Trudeau Foundation received donations from Beijing, facilitated by his brother, but he didn't know, and wants people to believe that the two investigators into foreign interference are from the Trudeau Foundation. There was a meeting with the Trudeau Foundation in the Prime Minister's office with his top officials, and we're expected to believe that he didn't know? Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister take the Canadians for fools? Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the member across the way wants there to be a link between the Foundation and the Prime Minister, but there was no connection. No link, either direct or indirect, between the Foundation and the Prime Minister. That's been clear. There's been no connection for over 10 years. It's very clear. Unfortunately, though, the Leader of the Opposition is looking to create division and partisanship. He's not really looking for facts, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, we were wondering why China was so interested in getting close to the Trudeau Foundation, and we got the answer this morning. Because in 2016, when China was signing a big check to the Trudeau Foundation, there was a meeting of the Trudeau Foundation at the Prime Minister's office with not one, not two, not three, but 5 deputy ministers. Yet the Prime Minister continues to insist that for 10 years he hasn't had any ties to the Foundation. But is he aware of what happens in his own office, or does he take Quebecers for fools? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, there was an independent meeting with public servants, officials, and the Foundation. The Prime Minister had no ties to that meeting, no information about it. The question is ridiculous. The implication is ridiculous. Neither China nor any other country has had an influence over our government or influenced any of our officials. Our officials are loyal to Canada. That's very clear, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the doors to power are wide open. The ties to power are wide open for the Trudeau Foundation. Most people couldn't dream of having preferential access to the Prime Minister's office, access to 5 top officials. This is why we can't trust the Prime Minister to really get to the bottom of China's interference and meddling with our institutions. We need transparency. We need to get to the bottom of things. So when will there be a public, independent inquiry? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister has stated on many occasions, he has no direct or indirect ties to the Foundation. That is evident. We can repeat that again and again. We need facts, and facts are necessary in this House in order to maybe the member across the way would like to write stories, become a novelist. That could be another career. But the facts are different from the stories, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, it's now day 6 of the public service employees' strike. The government is far from reaching a deal at the negotiation table, the bargaining table. In fact, the union leader is saying that the Treasury Board president doesn't take this seriously. We need to respect these workers who are here for us. It's time for the minister to be there for them. Will the minister stop doing a PR campaign and do her real job? Find a solution. The Honorable President of the Treasury Board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our team is currently working tirelessly and very hard to negotiate a new collective agreement which will be fair, equitable, reasonable, and competitive. The union came to the bargaining table with 570 asks, and there are only a few asks remaining. Mr. Speaker, we need to find a happy medium between what's reasonable for Canadians and what's fair for employees. That's exactly what we're doing with the offer we have recently put on the table.
River.
Mr. Speaker, workers deserve to be treated with respect, but Canada's public service workers have been without a contract for 2 years, and now they're out in the rain fighting for their rights, and the minister is nowhere to be found because the government has failed to get a fair deal for the workers. Canadians across the country are feeling the impacts of the PSAC strike. It's time for the minister to show that she's going to walk the walk on labor rights, or will the minister continue to ignore these workers' rights?
President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, our team has been working around the clock to negotiate new collective agreements that are fair, competitive, and reasonable. This round of negotiations has been a heavy lift. The union came to the table with 570 demands, and I'm proud to say that only a handful remain on the table. Mr. Speaker, we need to find a balance between what is fair for employees, reasonable for Canadians, and that's what the deal is and on the table at this time. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Charlebourg-Haute-Saint.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister increased the cost of the public service by 50% in 8 years and hasn't been able to handle that growth. So now CRA employees are on strike in the middle of tax season. These are difficult times for millions of Canadians, many of whom are waiting patiently for their tax refunds to pay bills and provide for their families' basic needs. Does the Prime Minister realize that Canadians are fed up with his incompetence? Will he take action now to ensure that refunds are not delayed? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, when it comes time to negotiate with the union, what would the Conservatives do? Canadians remember the Conservative years. They cut services, they silenced scientists, they tried to crush union movements and action everywhere in Canada. Then they stand in this House and try to tell us how to negotiate. Canadians will not forget. We'll never forget when how the public service was handled by Conservatives. Cuts upon cuts upon cuts, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member, wait just a moment. I'll ask everyone to take a deep breath.
I'm not sure what it is. It's not even heckling today. It's just people talking amongst themselves. It's lovely to see everyone getting along. But listen, if you're not interested, you know, you can leave. You can go outside the chamber. L'honorable député. Un moment.
The Honourable Member, just a moment. Hold on. We're going to wait here for everyone to be ready. Is everyone ready? All right. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, now, when I talk about government incompetence, the Revenue Minister is the best example. She's just talking nonsense. When we formed government, there was no strike and the public service was well handled. But currently, they have increased the size of the public service, but all federal services are being mismanaged, be it passports, be it taxes. So, through you, Mr. Speaker, can the minister give me an intelligent answer and confirm that there will not be delays in tax returns for Canadians? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I feel like I'm watching a bad movie. The Conservatives are standing and asking us to help Canadians, but then they vote against everything that we present and table to help Canadians. They want us to help Canadians, then they want to cut and slash everything we accomplish to help Canadians. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are experts at two things because they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, Mr. Speaker. So on the one hand, they give their illogical advice, but, you know, we're going to have the best tax season that we've had since 2015.
Mr.
Speaker, Canadians want to file their tax returns, but they don't know when they're going to be processed or when they're going to receive their refunds. In addition, this Prime Minister spent 50% more on the bureaucracy. Canadians are receiving poorer services, and just outside these doors, we have the largest public service strike in Canadian history. So when will this Prime Minister take responsibility for the price that Canadian taxpayers have to pay and end this strike?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
Mr. Speaker, for our government, it's important to make sure that we respect the right of workers to strike and we respect the collective bargaining process. We are doing just that because we believe that a good deal can be reached at the negotiating table, while we're also making sure that we're respecting Canadians and the price that they're going to pay to ensure that we get a fair deal for Canadians as well as for workers. And Mr. Speaker, I can assure the member opposite and all members across this House, if you file your taxes online, your tax return will not be impacted at all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that minister is the minister responsible for the passport backlogs in the first place. The Prime Minister had 2 years to negotiate agreement, and he failed. In addition, he raised the cost of the bureaucracy by 50%. Canadians are receiving poor services, and outside these doors, we have the largest strike in Canada in the history of the public service. So will this Prime Minister commit to the most basic of services for Canadians and commit to ending this strike?
The Honourable Minister.
Unlike the Conservatives, we actually respect workers' rights, and we are taking an approach that makes sure that we respect the right to collective bargaining and we respect the right to strike. We believe and we are committed to making sure that the best deal that is reached will be reached at the negotiating table, Mr. Speaker. Those negotiations are ongoing, and we're going to make sure that we get a good deal both for the public servants but also for Canadians, because we know how important it is to make sure that we deliver core government services, and we are going to get that deal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, this is the largest public sector union strike in 40 years. Revenue Canada workers are off the job and vital services have been halted. The tax filing deadline is this week, and Canadians can't even get their phone calls answered. When will the government, what is the government going to do to ensure continuity of service so Canadians can get their most basic questions answered?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister for Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for his question, and my Honourable colleague stated this very clearly in this House, that if Canadians file their taxes before the deadline online, there will be no impact to the PSAC strike that's going on right now. Mr. Speaker, let's be really clear. We believe in a negotiated settlement. We believe in working at the table. Mr. Speaker, let's look at the contrast between 9 years of economic stagnation on the other side, when the only playbook from the Conservative Austerity Caucus was chop, chop, chop. Whether it was status of women's offices, veterans' offices, rating EI, Mr. Speaker, Canadians know a government that has their backs, and that is our government.
Honourable Member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, how can the government expect Canadians to file their taxes by the deadline if they can't even get their questions answered? The government knew when the contract was up. They know when tax filing deadline is. So I will ask, how much money will it cost the taxpayers for this government to end the strike?
The Honourable Ministre.
The Honourable National Revenue Minister. Mr. Speaker, Conservatives say one thing and then they're opposite. They say they care about Canadians, but they voted against the Canada Child Benefit, Mr. Speaker. They voted against the Canada Workers Benefit, Mr. Speaker. They voted against dental care. They voted against housing programs, Mr. Speaker. And I can reassure my colleagues that since 2015, we've had the best tax seasons that we've had. 95% of Canadians file their tax returns electronically, and there have been no delays in paying tax returns. Before going to the next question, I would like to remind the members that we ask a question when we are recognized by the chair, not just when we feel like it. And when we refer to a colleague, we do so either by their writing or by their title, not by their first name, of course. Not by their name at all. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, 3 years after supposedly having cut ties with the Trudeau Foundation, we find out that this foundation had a meeting at the PMO in the Langevin building with 5 deputy ministers. How many charities get meetings in the Langevin building with 5 deputy ministers? None. So let's recap. The Prime Minister's office calls the foundation about donations from China. Then the Prime Minister invites the foundation for a meeting at the Langevin building. How can we really believe that the Prime Minister has cut ties for over 10 years when his ties to the foundation just keep piling up? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. I appreciate the conspiracy theory. It's very interesting, but not factual. It's not reality. I don't know how many times we have to repeat this, but it's very clear that there are no ties between the Prime Minister and the Foundation. And there haven't been any ties in over 10 years. Now, I understand that the Bloc Québécois wants to find some ties. They want to find the connection for partisan reasons. But there are no ties to be found, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, for the Liberals, trying to find the truth is a conspiracy. So there have been meetings with the Prime Minister's offices. There have been follow-up fundraising calls from the Prime Minister's staff, ties to the Prime Minister's family and close friends, and clearly one gets the impression that China, wanting to get in the government's good graces, has bet on the right horse. You want to get close to the Prime Minister? Donate to his father's foundation. We will no longer believe Liberals on anything in this file. Too much secrecy? Never the truth. What are they waiting for to set up a public and independent commission of inquiry? The Honourable Government Leader in the House. Mr. Speaker, David Johnston, former Governor General, who was appointed by Stephen Harper, has now been tasked in the current situation with investigating the situation. And I hope the member across the way is not calling into doubt the character and qualities of Mr. Johnston. He is responsible for the file. This is very serious, not just for the House of Commons, but for everyone, everywhere in Canada, to ensure that this is done independently. The Honourable Member for Lanty-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, this morning the Auditor General announced that she will not be conducting an audit into the Trudeau Foundation. This means that the only supposedly neutral investigation into the Chinese donations is the investigation that the Prime Minister asked for from his friend, David Johnston, and he will be reporting directly to the Prime Minister. So who will get to the bottom of Chinese interference? Who will shed light on it, if not an independent public commission of inquiry? The Honourable Government Leader in the House. Well, the answer, Mr. Speaker, is Mr. Johnson himself, who is responsible for this. And I'd like to say very clearly that I understand that the Bloc Québécois wants to find nefarious connections, but there aren't any. This is odd because the Bloc Québécois knows full well that our institutions, our parliamentary institutions, are among the best in the world. They are incredibly responsible and accountable. They oversee and monitor our systems and their integrity. The Bloc is saying that there's a problem. Meanwhile, the Auditor General says that there is no need for an investigation or an audit.
After endless passport delays this past year and $20 billion more spending on bureaucracy and the biggest public sector strike in more than a generation, the minister in charge of passports said, and I quote, "My best advice to Canadians is to not make that application right now because it simply won't be processed."
Unreal.
Come on. How low can you make the customer service bar? Canadians deserve better. They deserve competence. So when will the Liberals fix what they broke? But most importantly, how much is it going to cost Canadian taxpayers?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister for Families.
I understand that the Conservatives have an issue with the truth, but I'm just going to tell the truth. And the truth of the matter is that while there is a strike going on, I do recommend to Canadians not to submit an application for a passport unless it is urgent, because under the strike conditions, which are in law, they are unable to process those passports. And so, Mr. Speaker, unlike the Conservatives, I actually believe in telling the truth to Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was consulting with the clerk while this was going on, and there was something else happening, but I might have missed something, and I just want to say to everyone to be careful and be judicious with their words on both sides. The Honourable Member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, the truth is the Liberals had 2 years to fix this before it happened. That chaos out on the streets, this missed service, the lack of customer service is on their backs. 50% more in bureaucracy and the worst customer service this country has ever experienced. So one more time for the people across the aisle, when will they fix what they broke, and how much is it going to cost Canadian taxpayers?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
Mr. Speaker, I know the Conservatives have short memories, but when we increased the public service by 50%, it's because we were delivering the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit to 8.5 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. It's the fact that at the greatest health and economic challenge of our time, this government was there for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, my big concern is the fact that the Conservatives have not only forgotten that, but that they wouldn't do the same thing to help Canadians in their time of need. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
During the pandemic, Canadians had to wait hours in line to get a passport. Delays took 4 or 5 months for Canadians to obtain those passports, and the backlog by last August reached 340,000 Canadians. Wow. The pandemic ended, though, and Canadians thought, finally, things will get back to normal. But they failed to take into account the competence of this government's ministers, despite the largest expansion of the public service in recent decades and tens of billions of dollars spent on consultants. The government has managed to oversee the largest strike in decades in the public service. The minister's response? Don't apply for a passport. What travel document are Canadians supposed to travel on?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
Mr. Speaker, during a general strike, by law, passport services are not considered to be essential. If there are urgent or humanitarian cases, they will be processed. That information is available on the website. But, Mr. Speaker, I have grave concerns with the short-term memory losses of the Conservatives who have forgotten that those investments that were made were there to help 8.5 million Canadians get through the biggest health and economic challenge of our time. Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand that when they're in need, it's this government that's got their back. We just don't know where
the Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are paying some of the highest prices in the world for telecom services, and with the Rogers-Shaw merger approved by this government, it will only make things worse. Now it's been reported that the former industry minister is joining Rogers as executive in charge of public policy. This was the minister that allowed Rogers to raise cell phone prices through the roof. Former Liberal cabinet ministers landing cushy jobs in big corporations is nothing new, but this is unreal. You just can't make this stuff up. Why do Liberals seem more interested in jumping on the gravy train than bringing down costs for everyday Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for the question. Mr. Speaker, the one important issue for Canadians is to bring costs down, Mr. Speaker. That's why, Mr. Speaker, that's what we did in the last iteration that he's talking about. Mr. Speaker, the way to bring costs down in Canada is to have more competition. The way to have more competition is to have a fourth national player. That's what we deliver for Canadians. We're always going to stand up for Canadians to make sure that prices go down in this country.
Member for Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure you the way to bring costs down is not to appoint Liberal insiders to executive positions at Rogers. And the fact that he doesn't even know what the problem is just shows how out of touch they are with Canadians. They greenlit the Rogers-Shaw merger, even though the Competition Bureau said it was a bad deal for consumers. And now the former industry minister gets an executive position at Rogers. With this Liberal-Rogers merger almost complete, Canadians have a right to know which Liberal insider had influence and was involved in the approval process, and when was the last time the Prime Minister or the Industry Minister...
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, let me provide a bit of background to the member. Actually, we denied the transfer of license from Shaw to Rogers, Mr. Speaker. It's this government who stood up to the big telco, Mr. Speaker. We put 21 conditions. This has never been done in Canada's history, and Mr. Speaker, you know why? Because Canadians have asked us to bring price down. That's what we did. The way to do that is to competition and to have a fourth national player. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know on which side we stand. We stand on their side.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, economies around the world are striving to achieve net zero transition and adapt to green technologies for the future. Electrical vehicle and battery manufacturing plays a key role in reaching these objectives. Can the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry update this House on the historic announcement of Volkswagen setting shop in St. Thomas, Ontario, and what it means for job and investment for generations to come? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the colleague for the question. This is a great question. Actually, Mr. Speaker, it's a home run for Canada, Mr. Speaker. We've attracted a $7 billion investment. This is a home run for the community of St. Thomas and southwestern Ontario. This is a home run for our auto workers in Canada. This is a home run for our auto sector, Mr. Speaker. And unlike the Conservative in 2011, we don't let the sector go down. We invest in the sector, Mr. Speaker. We have attracted the first car manufacturer in 35 years and the first European. Let's celebrate, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order. Before we go to the next question, I hear somebody shouting. I just want to remind the honourable members that they do have an earpiece and they can turn it up if they're having a hard time hearing. The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Now, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has been saying for weeks that he built a wall between himself and the Trudeau family's taxpayer-funded foundations. New revelations now show that the Prime Minister didn't actually build the wall, that these claims are completely false. The Trudeau Foundation hosted a meeting inside the Prime Minister's own office with 5 deputy ministers. So what, was there a wall down the middle of the room or something? Canadians deserve a full investigation into political involvement and foreign interference into the Prime Minister's taxpayer-funded family foundation. Will the government allow that full investigation to take place?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the meeting in question was between public servants and the foundation. It did not involve the Prime Minister. It was in a building, yes, and there are many meetings that take place all over over Parliament Hill. And this is what's going on, Mr. Speaker, is again and again and again, they're looking for any way they can to connect this when no such connection exists. I've made it clear that no such connection exists. I will repeat that day in, day out, Mr. Speaker, and they'll continue to try with this.
Honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, let's listen to the words that the Government House Leader actually used. He said, well, yes, it was in a building. Yeah, it was in a building. Well, you know what building it was? It was in the Prime Minister's own office. It's not just any building, Mr. Speaker. It's of some significance. If there was a meeting that took place in my office, and then I claimed I had no idea that people were using my office, how did they get in? Did I leave the key somewhere? Mr. Speaker, could the Government House Leader provide us with a more serious explanation? If the Prime Minister didn't know about this meeting, then how did the people get into his office?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
I'm not sure which building the member in. Maybe he's in Confederation, and now I know that he's aware of every meeting that takes place in Confederation, Mr. Speaker. I mean, come on. Let's be realistic here. The actual issue that is attempting to be...
When are we ready? Are we ready? The Honourable Government House Leader, you have 25 seconds left.
Mr. Speaker, the underlying assumption that comes again and again and again, and let's be very clear about what they're trying to do. They're trying to paint a picture that this government, and I think it's offensive to suggest that any Canadian government would allow a foreign government to interfere or help make decisions. It is absolutely ridiculous. It attacks one of the most fundamental tenets of our democracy that has each of us here, which is to protect our institutions, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, to quote the Prime Minister himself, I made the decision 10 years ago to cut all ties with the Trudeau Foundation, and we've all respected that. Once again, it appears the Prime Minister has misled the House. We know his office was in contact with the Trudeau Foundation in 2016. We found out this morning that the Trudeau Foundation secured a meeting with the most influential deputy ministers of the new Liberal government just 6 months after it took office. If the Prime Minister is telling the truth, why was this meeting held in his own offices? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, Chantal Hébert this morning said that there were 3 meetings in the Langevin building. I never met with the Prime Minister. It's entirely possible that the Prime Minister didn't even know that meeting with deputy ministers took place. So are they saying that Chantal Hébert is also part of the conspiracy? The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. No, what I'm saying is do pass go and do collect $200. Apparently that's how the Trudeau Foundation saw the 2015 election. Donations from the regime in Beijing, access to the most important mandarins in the federal government, a jackpot for Liberal cronies. According to the media, the Prime Minister has been claiming for 3 weeks that there's a wall between him and the Trudeau Foundation, but no one imagined it was a gyprock wall within his own offices. There are many questions for the Prime Minister. Who requested the meeting? Who called the deputy ministers? Why was it held in the Prime Minister's building? And most importantly, who said yes to the Trudeau Foundation for this unprecedented access to the Prime Minister's top officials? The Honourable Government House Leader.
That protect our institutions. Let's talk about the CBC and Radio Canada. Let's talk about the fact that the leader of the opposition wants to work with large tech giants to destroy the walls that protect those foundations. Let's talk about the Bank of Canada, that he wishes to reach into the Bank of Canada, something that has been completely independent, protecting monetary and fiscal policy, to change the direction. And I wonder, Mr. Speaker, when he's given advice like cryptocurrency, would he apply that advice into the Bank of Canada and make the Bank of Canada listen to his political direction? Because it would have the same disastrous effect on all Canadians that it did on those that listened to his advice on cryptocurrency.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, where is the Prime Minister in the labour dispute between his government and the public service? After a weekend of no progress, and with the situation destined to escalate, the Prime Minister must intervene personally. This was an official request from the union, and it's also in the interest of Quebecers, who have everything to lose by seeing this dispute drag on. Every hour that passes brings us further away from a desirable negotiated solution and closer to an escalation. Will the Prime Minister finally come to the table? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Mr. Speaker, we are at the table right now. We are bargaining with the union. A lot of progress has been made. There were hundreds of demands, and now we're down to just a handful. And we'll get there. So, Mr. Speaker, we will reach a deal that is fair and reasonable for all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has to get involved personally. According to the union, at this stage, he's the only one who can resolve some of the key issues. Mr. Speaker, if this dispute drags on, there are people who won't get their tax returns on time. There will be another passport crisis. Some people won't get their EI. And the conflict drags on because the Prime Minister is snubbing the bargaining table. When will he take responsibility? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Mr. Speaker, for 3 weeks now, we've been at mediation. We've been working tirelessly to renew the collective agreement so that it's fair, competitive, and reasonable. This round of bargaining has been difficult. As I said before, the union came with over 500 demands, and I'm happy to say that there's only a handful left on the bargaining table. We're working very hard. We will reach a deal soon, very soon, and we will keep making every effort to reach that deal. Thank you.
Nipissing Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, 700 soldiers at Base Petawawa went without heat and water because the Prime Minister couldn't reach a deal with public servants. According to leaked documents, the Prime Minister secretly told our allies that he doesn't feel our military is important. Now Canadians know the truth. Under the Liberals, our women and men in uniform will never be considered a priority. The Prime Minister's residence would never go without heat and water. Why weren't heat and water deemed essential services for our Canadian Armed Forces?
Here. The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the question. First of all, an agreement has been reached that allows the heating plant to resume operations and provide heating and hot water to those living at the garrison. And in terms of our commitment to the Canadian Armed Forces, Mr. Speaker, our defence spending is increasing, unlike the Conservatives who let defence spending dip below 1% when they were in power, Mr. Speaker. We invested $40 billion in NORAD modernization. Our defence spending is increasing by 70% under our current defence policy, and in our last budget, Mr. Speaker, we are increasing defence spending by $8 billion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
That's called creative accounting. The Prime Minister's economy has caused the worst public service strike in decades and disproportionately hurting national defence. Our troops aren't being fed, have heat or hot water, or getting reimbursed for out-of-pocket meal expenses in places like Poland. It's said that an army marches on beans and bullets, and this incompetent Liberal government can't even get that right. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister doesn't consider the basic needs of our forces essential. He is literally leaving our troops in the cold and hungry. Why is that, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, it is somewhat surprising when the Conservatives let defence spending dip below 1% for my honourable colleagues to suggest that we are not paying attention to what we are rightfully focused on: increasing resources for the Canadian Armed Forces, increasing defence spending, ensuring that our forces have the equipment they need to fight forest fires and floods here at home, leading the Enhanced Forward Presence Battle Group in Latvia, making sure we are a leading donor to Ukraine in its time of need, contributing in the Middle East, Mr. Speaker. The list goes on, and we will always be here for the armed forces. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is showing quite an incredible amount of incompetence, and once again, Canadians will pay the price. In 8 years, the cost of the public service has gone up by 50%, and all at the same time, they were unable to prevent this unprecedented strike. And there are soldiers on a base with no hot water and heating because of this government. Does the Prime Minister think that our soldiers deserve better for everything they do for our country? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, I think a lot of Canadians would like to know what the Conservative members from Quebec, what their position is on their leader's decision to cut funding to CBC Radio-Canada, because last week no Quebec Conservative would defend their leader's position. Where do they stand on this issue of cuts to the CBC? The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Mr. Speaker, this week marks National Organ and Tissue Donor Awareness Week, which aims to raise awareness of the vital need to increase the number of donors across the country. Every year, hundreds of Canadians die while waiting for an organ transplant. Data from the Canadian Institute for Health Information shows that deceased donor rates in Canada went up by 42% from 2009 to 2018. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister of Health tell this House what our government is doing to improve organ donation and transplantation in Canada. The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Châteauguay-Lacolle for her hard work and for her important question. Our government recognizes the value of organ and tissue donation and transplantation, and we have an important role to play in protecting the health and safety of Canadians in need of transplants and living donors. In cooperation with the provinces and territories and the various organizations working in the field, our government has improved the situation in Canada through the Organ Donation and Transplantation Collaboration Initiative. Today and every day this week, we encourage people to consider the possibility of choosing to become a living donor to help save a life. Thank you.
Quinty.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians pay the highest cell phone rates in the world, and in fact, Rogers customers pay the highest cell phone rates in Canada. The minister has stated that the Rogers Shaw deal would alleviate those prices, but instead, in typical Liberal fashion, we're seeing it's only benefiting Liberal friends and donors while Canadians pay. Days after the announcement of the Rogers Shaw merger, the former industry minister was appointed, and remember, he was responsible for reducing cell phone bills by 25% to the Rogers Board of Directors. Why is it always that Liberal friends and insiders benefit while Canadians have to pay?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I think my colleague is somehow missing the point, actually, Mr. Speaker. Who are winning are Canadians, Mr. Speaker. I so wish that for those who are watching at home, they should listen to people. Canadians have asked us to do one thing, Mr. Speaker, is to bring prices down in telcos. The way to do that in Canada, Mr. Speaker, is to more competition. The way to do that is to have a fourth national player. Mr. Speaker, we have imposed the longest series of conditions in Canada history to make sure that the telcos will deliver for Canadians as Canadians expect in their everyday life.
Member for Bay of Quinte.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if you believe that, then I actually have a Rogers cell phone plan to sell you. This Prime Minister promised in 2015 to reduce cell phone bills by 25%. In fact, last year announced in this House that they reduced cell phone bills by 25%, when the reality is that Canadians have never been cell phone bills so high since these Liberals have been in power. The former industry minister told Canadians he was going to negotiate with Rogers. Canadians didn't know he was just negotiating for a corner office at Rogers. Why are the Liberal insiders and friends always benefiting on the backs of hard-working Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians who are watching at home know these conservatives, Mr. Speaker. They know exactly that they're good to bring all these conspiracy theories. We've heard an hour of them today, Mr. Speaker. But one thing they know who they can trust to have their back, Mr. Speaker. It's this government. That's exactly what we've done, Mr. Speaker. That's why what they told us is to bring prices down for Canadians. They wanted more competition, Mr. Speaker. And the way to do that is to have a fourth national player.
I'm sorry, I'm struggling to hear the answer. If I can ask the minister to start over so I can hear the full response, please.
Mr. Speaker, we will take no lessons from these conservatives. Actually, they even asked me from Volkswagen, Mr. Speaker. Those are the conservatives who let the auto sector down in 2011. Those are the conservatives who let the good people of St. Thomas and southwestern Ontario down, Mr. Speaker. Those are the conservatives who let 8,000 workers go down in 2011 in St. Thomas, Mr. Speaker. One thing Canadians have seen last Friday is that we invest in people, we invest in our worker, we invest in Canada. That's what Confident Nation are doing, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for South Shore, St. Margaret's.
DFO's Elver science is done on the East River Chester, the only river, and Elver harvesters have been begging DFO to monitor and enforce the law on that river, yet poaching is happening every night. I observed it for the last 3 nights personally during the open legal season, and since the closure, no one from DFO has been on that river. And if you can believe it, DFO enforcement called the license holder this morning proactively to say that they won't be monitoring the river for law enforcement breaches or for science. Why?
The Honourable Minister for Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker. Well, let me be clear about what actually happened here, Mr. Speaker. DFO more than doubled the number of enforcement officers. We worked closely with the RCMP And we made numerous arrests. We seized gear and unauthorized catches. And, Mr. Speaker, we closed down the fishery to protect public safety and conservation, but enforcement continues for the closed Elver fishery. So we are working to reduce the amount of illegal fishery, and we'll continue to do just that.
Here, here. Member for Scarborough Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 10 years ago today, on April 24, 2013, the Rana Plaza factory in Bangladesh collapsed, killing 1,134 people and injuring even more. That incident, which brought to light the inhumane conditions in which many workers around the world still work in today, reminds us that we have a responsibility as world leaders to fight for the rights of workers everywhere, regardless of borders and distance. Can the Minister of Labour update us on the work that our government is doing to protect workers around the world on this sober anniversary?
The Honourable Minister of Labour.
Speaker, I want to thank the member for Scarborough Centre for the question. The Rana Plaza incident 10 years ago is a painful reminder about the absolute necessity for workers around the world to have fair pay and safe working conditions. Canada is working with the International Labour Organization and unions to champion the rights of workers. We've built labor conditions into our trade agreements because workers make trade possible, and they should reap the benefits of it. I went to Washington last year to launch Empower, a global initiative with the U.S. and other like-minded countries to support unions, to support workers' rights, and to eradicate forced labor in our supply chains. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have given more than $200 million to Deloitte for contracts within a single department in the last year alone. Wow. Now, we've learned that former Liberal and Conservative cabinet ministers are currently working for Deloitte. Whoa. Public service workers have been left out in the rain asking for fair pay. Meanwhile, the Liberals have no problem giving massive multi-million-dollar contracts to their friends. People are fed up with the hypocrisy. Will the minister end this reckless government outsourcing and instead get a fair deal for public service workers?
The Honourable Minister for Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for his question. As was clearly established at the Government Operations Committee earlier this year, there was absolutely no political interference in the contracts awarded, particularly to McKinsey. We are open and transparent as a government in the way that we award contracts, and we will continue to do so. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, the situation in Sudan is rapidly deteriorating. Hundreds have been killed and thousands injured. Over 1,600 Canadians registered with Global Affairs Canada, but sadly, many more have not. Mr. Speaker, the fighting's intense. Food and water supplies are limited. Canada has evacuated its embassy and suspended consular services. We know Canada is trying to work out an evacuation plan with like-minded countries. Can a minister inform this House? How's that coming along? Advising people to shelter in place with no embassy, food, or water is not a viable solution.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to very much thank the honourable member for raising that important question. It took a long time today to get us out of the weeds and into a very life-threatening situation. The situation in Sudan is changing by the minute. The minister is in constant conversation with her counterparts around the world. I want to take a moment to thank our diplomats who have been courageous and working extremely hard. They have now been removed from the embassy. The embassy is closed. However, they continue to work to support both Canada's efforts at engaging in peace as well as helping Canadians. If anyone has a Sudanese Canadian friend, please make sure they register with ROCA so that we can help them immediately. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for question period today. It being 3:13, pursuant to order made on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion at the second reading stage of Bill C-27. Convoquez les députés.
Call in the members.